Welcome to R&R's Ask the Expert. I'm your host, Mildred Ingram, R&R's editor-in-chief, and today I'm joined by special guest, Josh Miller. Josh Miller is the president of Rainbow Restoration, an international franchisor based in Waco, Texas. Josh is currently an RIA-approved instructor for the Certified Restorer, Fire Loss Specialist, and is one of the lead instructors for the Water Loss Specialist course. He also is approved by the IICRC to teach the WRT, ASD, FSRT, OCT, and CCT courses. Over the years, Josh has worked in all phases of the disaster restoration field, starting as a water and cleaning technician in the field. He has also been a project manager, estimator, operations manager, general manager, and a consultant. Josh is a certified restorer, water loss specialist. I mean, the list literally goes on. And additionally, he is a certified structural drying supervisor through the ACAC and a registered third-party evaluator through the International Dry Standard Organization. Just very impressive. Thank you for joining us, Josh.
Yeah, you're welcome, Mildred. I'm glad you stopped. Always exciting to accomplish different things in the industry, but when they're read back to you, it's kind of like, okay, we can stop going through all of that and just say I'm a certified restorer and a lifetime restoration, a career restoration person.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So tell us about your position at Rainbow Restoration and what the company offers.
Yeah, so I currently have the privilege to serve as the president of Rainbow Restoration. Let's start with Rainbow Restoration, who we are and what we do. Rainbow is one of 19 North American service brands under the Neighborly Service umbrella. So if you research us on the internet or go to neighborlybrands.com, what you'll find is that Neighborly is the world's largest home services franchisor. So as a franchisor, what we do is we offer people the opportunity to open their own small business using proven systems, support from the home office, either here in Waco, Texas, or our headquarters 2, HQ2, we call it, up in Dallas due to our rapid growth over the past few years. But we allow people to own their own small business. They have systems and support to help grow things that have been successful in the past. And then it just depends on what type of business you'd like to be in. So in the case of Rainbow Restoration, listeners to this podcast understand that the restoration industry is varied. So we help people in their time of need, really on their worst day, we say, in terms of property ownership, when they have a fire, a flood, some type of damage to their property. Restorers across North America, Australia, anybody that does restoration knows that you have to have an empathetic heart. You help people put their buildings back together, really their lives back together. And so Rainbow those are the services that our owners provide, but really as the president of Rainbow, there's a lot more involved than just actually doing the work. It's setting the direction for the brand and then supporting we have over 400 franchise owners, supporting them as they pursue their personal goals. And they do that through small business ownership.
Awesome. So I do know that recently Rainbow Restoration went through a brand name change.
Yep.
Was it Rainbow International? Why did Rainbow make that name shift?
Yeah, so Rainbow has a long and rich history in small business world. So we were founded in 1981 here in Waco, Texas, by a very interesting, successful individual named Don Dwyer. And so Don founded Rainbow, and it was called Rainbow International Carpet Cleaning and Dyeing. And so back in 1981, before Stainmaster carpet and different chemistry of carpet, you could dye carpet very easily. And so in addition to cleaning carpet, Rainbow would dye carpet. That's where the name really comes from. Rainbow is that you could dye your carpet the colors of the rainbow. And so the international came from Don's vision. Don had a vision of being international around the world, providing the franchising opportunity or small business opportunities to everyone around the world that wanted to achieve their dreams for themselves or their families through franchise ownership or small business ownership. So over the course of the past 40 years, just like the restoration industry, Rainbow's undergone a lot of different changes and evolutions. And so about a year ago, in strategic planning sessions, we said really our name should tell the end user what we do. And so we're still an international company. We have franchises in the UK and Germany, and then here in North America, the United States and Canada. But we wanted to really make it succinct and just tell people what we do. So we just dropped the international part of it and went to Rainbow Restoration, so that when someone sees us, whether it's one of our vehicles, on the internet, any type of marketing collateral, they'll tell them exactly what it is that our company does.
Okay. More specific.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a mouthful too when you're telling people I work for Rainbow International Restoration, or it used to be Rainbow International Cleaning and Restoration. So just trying to get very specific and a shorter to try to help people dial in on exactly what it is we should focus on. The other thing, Mildred, I would say is it helps us to focus here at the home office, and also for our franchise owners, the business owners, to have that hyper focus on exactly what it is we do, rather than becoming the master or the jack of all trades, master of none, saying, hey, we're a restoration franchisor and a restoration company. Let's become even better at those services than we already are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what is the hardest part of your job, and what is the most rewarding?
It's a very interesting question. I think that they're tied to one another. The hardest part of the job here at the home office, especially as the president, is seeing when people are not meeting their goals. And so we think about as a franchisor, there's a huge level of responsibility. Really, you might say there's a debt placed upon us to provide support to our owners, because when they come and look to have small business ownership, they're trusting us sometimes with their life savings or their retirement, their 401k. They're investing, putting this money down to buy their franchise and their equipment. And they're saying, I believe in you, Rainbow, and your systems and what you've done over the past 40 years. And so when someone is not as successful as they would like to be, whether that's through not putting forth the effort that they need to in terms of following the system, there's a lot of people that are small business owners that can be very fiercely independent, or, hey, I'm going to do things my way. That doesn't always work the best in a franchise network, because the franchise has a very specific way of doing things that has been proven to work. It's hard to see people not meet their goals, because that's one of the, as you mentioned, what's one of the most rewarding things? One of the most rewarding things is to see people when they come through a new owner training, we call it here in Waco, Texas. They buy a franchise. They go through a bunch of prerequisites to get ready to launch their franchise or have their grand opening date. Part of that is spending a few weeks with us down here in Waco, Texas, going through training. During that process, you get to know them very well in an intimate way in terms of what brought them to small business ownership. Why did they decide to go with Rainbow Restoration? What are their goals? One of the classes that I teach, one of the first sessions is begin with the end in mind. All of us have a reason that we show up at work every day, or all of us have goals that we would like to accomplish. And especially with small business ownership, what we find is that when people first buy their company or first buy their franchise, they have all of these ideas. Hey, I want to go on 6 weeks vacation a year, or I want to own a boat. Perhaps they want to provide for their children's college education. The possibilities are limitless with where they want to go when it comes to brainstorming on goal setting. And so they share those during that first session. I asked them to say, hey, look out 10, 15, 20 years. What does it look like when you want to exit the system? And then write that down. And then what do you have to do? Then we can say, okay, if in 10 years you want to sell your company for X number of dollars, or you want to take so much vacation, what do you have to do every year from now through the 10th year to do that? And then what do you have to do each month and each day? So it's very rewarding to see people start with all of these goals and then to progressively work as a team, both the home office and the local service providers that are independently owned around North America, the UK. It's very rewarding to see them reach those goals. But it's also very frustrating when you know the passion and the reason that they want to hit those goals. If they're not hitting them, that's a challenging part, as to looking in the mirror every day, asking myself, what could I do better as the president to support them? How can we improve things? Or how can we also coach them to motivate themselves to make sure that they remember that they have those goals? But there's a saying that I've heard before, that a lot of times a strength taken to an extreme is a weakness. And I think this is the same thing, not that there's a weakness or a strength, but the most rewarding thing is working with people. The most challenging part is working with people and making sure that we keep over 400 different locations all rowing in the right direction. And also being there to see, really, when they have challenges, we feel those challenges. And sometimes it's hard to see that, and you want the best for them, but you also have to make sure that you work to help coach and motivate them so that they want the best in themselves, and you get them back on track when business ownership starts to kind of move them or derail them from where they're going.
That is such a humbling way to just look at when people come to you wanting to open a franchise. It's really refreshing and really nice to hear that you are looking at it on a more broad spectrum, outside of just the business side, which obviously is important, but just as the person, as a person. So
Yep. No, thank you. It's one of the things, and I don't know if we'll get to it or not. I'll say it now because I just had another birthday a couple weeks ago, Mildred. So I turned 47. So my mind sometimes the memory is going. But
well,
the purpose,
congratulations, happy belated.
yeah, thanks. The vision, purpose, mission statement, or what we do. The purpose of Neighborly, and this is for all of our service brands, and I love this purpose, is to build a service community that enriches people's lives by delivering amazing experiences. And so it's very easy to come to work and at the end of the day, ask myself when I look in the mirror, hey, Josh, did you enrich people's lives? Or I guess I should stay in a humbling way. I don't know that I always enrich people's lives while I'm involved in it, being who I am, but did I help somebody get where they want to go? Because all of us have goals that involve making a certain amount of money so that we can provide for ourselves and our families. So if somebody hits their financial goals, then Rainbow's going to hit our goals to fill in the white space. Really, we talk about it neighborly, fill in the white space. How do we get more dots on the map to cover the entire service area to provide these services to those in the community that are in need? But as long as we're enriching people's lives, helping them reach their goals, as you mentioned, the rest of it should take care of itself with regards to profit and loss statements and profit goals. How many new franchise territories do we sell? That should all take care of itself. If we're building a service community where they tell everyone that they meet, hey, we're involved with Neighborly or Rainbow Restoration, you should get involved too. So as long as we provide the support and the results that are needed, the growth should take care of itself.
Yep. So what is the biggest change you've seen in restoration since you've been in the industry, and how did you join the industry?
Yeah, so I joined the industry back in May of 1996. So that was, a long time ago when I was, 20 years old. So I've been in the industry for approaching 27 years now. I joined the industry, just through, hey, I needed a job due to life circumstances of, hey, I wanted a job that was from 9 to 5. At the time when I joined the industry, had a different type of, my work was in the evenings. So I worked from like 9 p.m. till 4 or 5 a.m. And then through wanting to get on a more routine schedule, starting to, at the time I was dating and then was looking towards getting married. So my wife was like, hey, I don't want you out all night when we were looking at getting married. And so I started in the industry because I found this job. Hey, I could go out and be a water damage technician and a carpet cleaner. And so it worked. And then from there, the possibilities within our industry are really limitless as to where you'd like to go, and you get to help other people. I'm a person that tends to get bored very easily. And so the restoration industry is a phenomenal outlet for that, because you never face the same thing more than once. Every day, no day is ever really the same in terms of what jobs you're gonna face. So over the past 27 years, it's provided for me very well, and for my family. As long as I was married, I'm single now, but as long as I was married, provided for my family and our two sons. My ex-wife and I are two sons. And then when I look at what's the biggest change, really there's two things, Mildred, that I say are the biggest changes. Well, let's say three. Number one is the maturation of the industry and consolidation. We see that everywhere right now with mergers and acquisitions. The industry as it matures, there's a lot of consolidation. We see this across a lot of other industries, and now the restoration industry is going through that process with regards to consolidation. During that consolidation, or as part of that consolidation, what we see is that there's a lot more systems in place. And so when I was joining the industry, we would go to a job and we'd extract the water on a water job. And then every job, it seemed like this was before the Hydro X was invented or in-place drying was even thought about in the mid 90s. Every job, we'd extract the water, we'd roll the carpet back, we'd tear all the carpet cushion out, we put our dehumidifiers and air movers on there, and then an adjuster was almost on every job. And so the way it was determined whether or not you did your job correctly was the client, the homeowner, was happy, and the adjuster could visually see that everything was done properly.
Okay.
So that's obviously changed. And so now there's systems for everything. If you see an adjuster on a job that's not a large loss or not a commercial project, these days, that's almost like seeing a unicorn with regards to third-party administrators and making sure that we document and validate everything that we do. So everything now, instead of paper, is going to electronic. You have to make sure you take photos of absolutely everything you do and have reasoning behind it, which leads to the other big change. So that's one of the big changes, is understanding that there's a system to everything, and we need to validate what we do. And we really need to communicate, sometimes over communicate with all the materially interested parties as to what's happening in real time, so that everyone can stay informed. The other thing is we see the rise or the introduction of standards in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first water damage standard came out in 1994, and then I joined the industry in 1996. I didn't even know that there's a water damage standard for the first year or two that I was in the industry, because I was just out in the field doing the work, and the company I worked for kind of told me what to do based off of their understanding of the standards. But since 1994, the water damage standard has undergone, I think it's 4 revisions now. They're convening a committee, the S500 revision committee, for the 5th revision. It's a 5th or 6th.
Mm-hmm.
Very soon. It was just out for peer review. That peer review process ended, and the ISCRC S700 committee is reviewing it now. We have a fire damage standard.
Okay.
So that's the other big change that's come into the industry, is that now there are industry standards or best practices for everything that we do. So it helps the industry, because who am I? Josh Miller doesn't know everything. So if I say, well, I've always done it this way, that doesn't mean it's the right way to do it. But when we have these IICRC, which are ANSI accredited standards, when we have those standards, it helps make it so that we're all speaking the same language, whether it's claims representatives, homeowners, restorers. We can all now speak to, hey, this is what the standard says, or the OSHA requirement, or the EPA standard. So over the past 27 years now, there's a lot more to remember, but it makes it a lot easier to perform your job when you can say, hey, this is why I did what I did. The standard says to do so.
Yep. That does make it much easier. You have something to revert back to. So go back a couple of years, kind of at like the beginning of your career, and tell us what you wish you had known back then versus what you know now.
That's when we were preparing to talk with one another, that was one of the questions that I think about. I think that it's not just from the industry. I started in this, it's not like industry knowledge, but more like it's life knowledge that applies to the industry. I wish I would have known. And part of that just comes from living. As you look at the industry and people who are successful in any walk of life, but in this case, I'll use the restoration industry. I've been privileged to meet a lot of individuals, successful individuals, generous individuals that are either managers, consultants, they own businesses. And the one common theme that I see amongst all of them, or the few common themes, is number one, is there's consistency there. And so as a 20-year-old, when I got in the industry, I don't think that any of us focus on that too much unless you're wise or you age beyond your years. But really being consistent in what we do has tremendous value. I have a 24-year-old and 15-year-old, 2 sons. And even as I've watched them grow and then look back to where I was at and where they're at, you can see where when we're consistent at anything in life. So if we consistently are working out, then we're much healthier and we're able to do more. If we consistently in the industry show up that we're going to do good work and that we're going to follow standards, then we build a reputation on that. We start to know, hey, this is what Josh Miller or Mildred Ingram, what they stand for, because we consistently show up the same way every day. The other thing, and there was a gentleman I worked for in Michigan, when talking about consistency, said, people want to know that they're going to consistently get the same thing out of a company, a business, or a person. So the highs and the lows can tend to frustrate people, and we see in frustrate results of what we're doing. So show up consistently. The other thing that I wish I would have known, again, this is just a life lesson, but I apply it even now, is to be disciplined to the basics. And so when I think about the industry, if we're disciplined to the basics, we just talked about standards, but we think about owning a business. So in the role that I'm at now, as the president of Rainbow. It's being disciplined to 4 or 5 key areas that we're trying to grow and not changing those. And what you find is that those are not extremely complicated. Successful companies and successful people are brilliant at the basics. And so that's something I wish I would have known or really understood it maybe a little bit more when I first got in the industry, is that if you just focus on the basics over and over again, then it allows you to have a foundation that you can build more complex things off of, where you can do greater things. And so that's probably the 2 areas. And with regards to the basics, recently had a chance at one of Neighborly's leadership summits to hear a keynote speaker talk about the basics. And his name was Alan Stein Jr. He's was a basketball coach or consultant for a long time. And one of the people that he got to work with was Kobe Bryant before Kobe Bryant passed away. And Alan Stein shares in his book, Raise Your Game. And in his keynote speech, he says that he had the chance one time to watch Kobe Bryant practice. And so Kobe Bryant said, "Hey, I'm going to start practice tomorrow at 4 a.m. So Alan Stein gets there at like 3:40 a.m. thinking, hey, I'm going to beat him. Kobe Bryant was already there practicing before 4 a.m., stretching and dribbling. And so he went up to him and said, "Hey, I've watched you and you just practiced the same footwork and the same dribbling maneuvers. These are very, very basic things. And yet you're the greatest basketball player in the world." And Kobe Bryant looked at him and said, "Why do you think I'm the greatest basketball player in the world?" And so I've tried to use that or observe even here at Neighborly. As I mentioned, there's 19 service brands, so I'm privileged to work with 18 other presidents, and then a growth team, the C-suite, that just phenomenal people, down to earth, caring people. But when I watch them, Mildred, it's all the basics. They show up the same way. They focus on how do we support others, how do we sell new franchises, how do we support franchises, and how do we manage our expenses. There's not really anything super complicated in terms of the concept around what we do. And I think it's the same way in the restoration industry. There's not anything super complicated about drying out a building, extract the water, set up the equipment, monitor it. But if you don't have the basics of you're there to try to help support the building and the homeowner, then nothing else works. So those are the 2 things I think, is just consistency and discipline to the basics. I wish I would have known that a little earlier in my life and also in my career.
You know what? The next question, I don't even really know if I need to ask it, because I feel like you just covered it, but I will say it anyway, because who knows what you got. So what advice would you give someone new into the industry today? And I feel like you just said it.
Yeah, it's consistency to the basics. The one thing I would share is that I would tell people to get involved in the industry.
Okay.
So right now, we're about 3 weeks away from the RIA, the Restoration Industry Association's annual convention and trade show down in Orlando, Florida. And so my encouragement would be to get involved at some level. So the RIA might be a little bit much for, say, a new water technician or service professional that's joining the industry. But start to network with people in your area. So the RIA has these regional focus groups that the RIA is now trying to grow, so that people don't have to travel as far. Get involved in whatever way you can and network with people. That would be my one piece of advice outside of the things we just talked about. Because as I look back on my career, more so than anything else that has helped me to advance in my career and advance in my becoming a better professional in the restoration industry, what has helped me is going to trade shows, being involved in the industry, and meeting the people in the industry. So I've met, as you've taken on this role, and congratulations on being the editor of R&R. I get to meet people like you. I think about Ken Larson, someone who was and Norris Gearhart, my certified restorer, my CR instructors. But when I went to that class, there was 7 other people in my class who I was able to meet. And then those 7 people knew 7 or 14 people. And as you grow that network, what it allows you to do is it allows you to see that, number one, there's more than one way to do things. I think we all can get kind of focused on like, hey, this is the way I do things and it's the greatest way to do things. But consider other viewpoints. Number 2, you find that, as I mentioned, I've been in this industry 27 years, so I haven't been in too many other industries in my life. But I think that the restoration industry as a whole has some of the most generous, empathetic people, owners of businesses, service professionals, estimators, people that want to help others in their time of need. But that helping others also extends to those of us that are doing the work. And so whenever you can meet someone and get to know them, I've got on my phone so many different people that if I call or text them right now and say, hey, I'm wondering how to approach this job, or have you ever seen this challenge? They're more than happy to share that knowledge with me. So that's what I would say, Mildred, outside of, hey, be consistently disciplined to the basics. Maybe you and I should trademark that, but just get involved and start to network with people,
Yes.
because it's a small industry and that we all know each other, but it's a very big industry in terms of how many people's lives we are able to touch by supporting them and putting their businesses or their homes, their properties back together.
Josh, thank you so much for your time and insight, and you are absolutely right. So before we go, where can our listeners connect with you or learn more about, is it Neighborly or Rainbow Restoration?
Yeah, so the first one I've mentioned, I'd go to neighborly.com.
Mm-hmm.
You can Google us, Neighborly Brands, or just neighborly.com, and you'll see there that there's 19 North American service brands. The acquisitions that we're consistently adding to our portfolio internationally, it changes. I think we're up around 30 brands internationally that are part of the Neighborly umbrella. For Rainbow, you can go to Rainbow Restores with an S, rainbowrestores.com. That's our website. I'm not a big social media person, Mildred, but I am on LinkedIn. So if they look for Josh Miller out of Waco, Texas, you'll find me. Outside of that, not on too much social media. But if there's anything I can ever do to support or help anyone in the restoration industry, my email address is Josh Miller and then CR, like certified restorer. So joshmillercr@gmail.com. And I'm happy to help anybody in any way that I can, answer questions, direct them to different training, whether it's at the IICRC or the RIA, and really help to push them forward or to elevate their career here in the restoration industry and see them be wildly successful.
Thank you. So listeners and viewers, you can learn more about Josh Miller in our weekly newsletter and on our website. For more insights on restoration, remediation, and the people behind it all, visit our website, rnrmagonline.com, Apple, or Spotify. If you haven't yet, be sure to follow the podcast to keep up with our latest episodes and give us a quick review and rating. We are also on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook, so we invite you to follow us there too. This has been R&R's Ask the Expert. Thank you for listening.